Hello, thank you for joining us here with Weaving Stories of Your Well-Being. This is hosted by Pure Esperanza, and we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing forth consciousness while educating body, mind, and soul in the art of well-being. So we're far along into this series. We're already now going on to almost a full year. We'll have one more after this, and we invite you to join us to see the release of our January, our final episode in this series. Today, though, we bring you this beautiful story for December, the story time that we have, where we weave all these intricate pieces that you can latch onto and get something that's a gift for you. Likewise, and similar to this holiday season, we're always preparing and getting ready for this season. It seems to go hand in hand with the gift giving that we do and the traditions that we have. And oftentimes we're, preparing this special gift that we have for a loved one. And as transient as that is, people give us their wish lists and kids write to the Santa and hope that they get those gifts. And we ourselves might have some little, wishes tucked up inside and pass that on along to someone who we know is going to give us a gift. And these are wonderful ways to experience the joy, and we look forward to it. But then there are these other events that happen in life, and sometimes we don't always see them as the gifts that arrive for us also. They're unexpected, they're not planned like the ones that we're preparing for during this holiday season, but they arrive to us. And we don't always recognize them as the gifts that they may be. And so this is something that we, want to be able to receive them also. And yet oftentimes we find ourselves in a different view or perspective of what that may mean to us when something presents itself and it looks very much like something that was difficult or challenging or trying for us, or even where we find in our own minds us saying it shouldn't have happened that way, it shouldn't be, as so much is the case when we find ourselves in those moments. And yet we're sitting with this event, this circumstance, this condition that we have, that we're facing all of a sudden. And so these are the kinds of things that are sometimes unrecognizable and yet beneficial for us. And these are the things that we want to be able to address as we move into not just this season and the next one, but as lifelong kinds of learnings. So today I'm sitting thinking about these things, and I know Balaka and I share so much. Balaka is here to join us with her beautiful gift of giving gifts and insights to us all. And Balaka, I'm just so happy that you're here, and I'm always interested in getting your views and your understandings. And I always am so excited to know that you're going to have something that you're going to pull out like a magician out of a magic hat, something that's going to be a gift for us all. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel this, and I reciprocate that feeling, and I don't deserve so much praise at all. But I do have, somehow a story brain, a story bank balance, maybe from which I pull out in every context. There is something funny or something to think about. And I'm always happy to share them. And thank you for having me over this whole year, sharing stories of different kinds. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So what do you think about today? What do you think about this whole season? Yeah.
You said it so beautifully about, we have a plan, we think about giving gifts, but when life gives us an experience, which is a gift, we usually judge it and we react to it. Sometimes we are exhilarated only to be disappointed a little while later because it doesn't give us permanent happiness. It's transient. Or something negative happens and we, like you said, oh, this shouldn't have happened like this. Or if we could have done that, we could have thwarted this one. There's so much of analysis of it. But the wise actually pause and ponder that what's in it for me, you know, what's the wisdom, what's like, if life doesn't give you anything, it gives you experience. So basically we have a series of experience at every moment, and we don't like several of them, especially the big ones we don't forget. But there is probably some enlightenment coming to us, or at least something favorable coming to us in not so distant future. When we look back, we see it. That reminds me of the story of the Chinese horse. So if you know, if you haven't heard it, here it goes. Once upon a time, many years ago, way before technology and electronics or electricity came to this world, firewood had to be collected every morning. So a group of boys from a village, like every day, went to the forest and the clearing. They were picking up wood, and suddenly they heard a neigh and you know, stomping of the feet, and they looked up and they found a white stallion, like as if from the king's collection, one has somehow just freed itself and arrived. So how on earth did this horse come here? And those boys were like, you know, 17, 18, 19-year-old boys, and said, yeah, let's ride it. And they tried to get on it, but it wouldn't let anybody get near. It would kick and do its you know, flips and just throw anyone who tries to get up, or just kick bad. So everyone's scared. They're not used to taming horses, especially this big, you know, tall guy. So one of the boys, after a lot of jostling around it, he climbed a tree branch, a low branch, approached the horse from above, and before it could realize, he had nice and neatly perched on top of it, straddled on it, and got a grasp of the horse. And somehow the horse couldn't figure out a way to throw him off and just was obedient. And he started trotting. And all the other boys were like, wow, look at him. Look at him. They were a little jealous and there's a, why didn't we think of this? But this guy somehow rode into the village with all the other boys running behind, scampering, panting. And he looked like a little king, you know, going around the village every day. He had tamed the horse. And now this boy is proud, like, look at me. There's this, of course, the envy of the others, not apparent, just inside their hearts. And the parents of this young man was so proud. Look at our boy. He figured out a way to tame a stallion. That's how boys need to be, you know, smart, ready to take these risks. And all the other village parents were kind of like, oh, like, why didn't my son do it? And, you know, we have such a scaredy cat boy. So they were also not happy. And after about a week of all this strutting around, the stallion somehow had enough, and like, one day did it so bad that this boy went up into the air, dropped with a thud, and broke his pelvis, femur, badly broken. And then started the next wave of thoughts in the village. All the other boys like, huh? So well, he couldn't tame the stallion after all. And the parents thought, oh, why did he have to get so obsessed about the horse? That's, that's taking too much risk for no apparent gain. So they were like sad and also very critical about their boy. And the whole village was like, told you, see, this is what you get when you're trying to be so proud, you're showing off. Our boys are not like that. They're very practical, grounded, down to earth people, not like this fellow. So all the praise and the envy turned like as if it's like, served you right, boy. That's what you deserve for so much of boastful bragging and going around the village. Well, that was that. And then while the boy is still healing and waiting in bed without, of course, any treatment back in the days, the king of that little kingdom was at war with his neighbor. They were always, little kingdoms having those skirmishes. And they said, okay, get all the young men from all the villages, bring them here. We need to grow our army. No training, no problem. Just the sheer size of our army is going to scare the enemy. Like our other story, remember how numbers do have a big bearing on the morale of the enemy. So there came rode in a full dozens of army men who just took the boys, all young boys, 16 and above. Let's go. And in those times, they had to walk miles through the desert, arid areas. And even if they won the battle or won the war, walking back home safely in good health was kind of impossible. So if your boy goes to war, there's very little chance of your seeing him again. So there was a lot of bidding goodbye, teary-eyed parents and boys. They're kind of like the final farewell. And when the army men came into this boy's house, and said, hey, they first thought maybe he's trying to play sick and get away from it. I said, hey, get up, hey, you got to go to war with us. They tried, and then they said, oh, this boy cannot even stand up. It's just really wincing, and they're experts. So they took a look at his leg and his hip all misaligned. And so, you know what? You're no good. We're not taking you. And they marched out of the hut. And the parents were so thankful that, oh, thank God he broke his hip so bad. And when all the boys had left and the parents were heartbroken, they told this boy's parents that, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky that your young man is home with you. You're so lucky that he had this accident not too long ago and he's not fit to go to war. You have him with you. So you see what looked like gallant, like a winning riding on the horse was suddenly met. It kind of ended. All the euphoria ended with his fall. And then what seemed like a total disaster. Now this young man won't even be a good farmer with a broken pelvis. Saved his life. At least he will be there with his parents, with his limited ability, and not dead in a battle. So we never really know how things turn, how good things, apparent good things is not so good after all, and how the disasters can bring the boons in unexpected ways. So that I always remember this story. And I'm sure in many cultures there are similar stories like this, but this always keeps me kind of not too elated and euphoric, like, you know, after scoring a point or a goal, you go like, yeah, I did it. Well, take it in that little stride that we don't know what this is leading to. At least not, it shouldn't bring me pride. And the next one is when not so good things happen, I'm like, what experience is life going to enrich me with? Of course, the pain of going through it at that point, the physical pain, let's say the broken bones, is not a happy thing. One can't be like totally, you know, with equanimity may not be there. But to some degree, if we are curious, that maybe if life is giving me this, maybe it's actually tucking in enlightenment or a favorable situation in future that we cannot predict at this time. Let's wait and watch. That itself gives a resilience. That itself gives us a little bit of courage to bear with that suffering of that moment. It looks like that, oh no, this experience in life has nothing to teach me. I'm sorry, this is a very negative, maybe a death in the family. But at the same time, I have seen people go through that kind of grief. And I'm not justifying the bad incident, but going through that grief, I've seen the blooming of a personality to deal with, you know, to become a leader almost.
Yeah,
From a
I agree.
completely, you know, confined role in a certain way in life, be it the four walls of a household or something else. Just I work at home, I'm a man, I just go out and work and come back and do nothing. Suddenly something happens where they become a more balanced and a person with multi-capability and wisdom, helping other people rise.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, as a healer, there are really no stories as far as any healers go that are free of what those wounds were that allowed them to heal them. And in turn, that became their gift, their power, and their medicine then to help heal others. So it's as if though everything is connected together. And I think that's one of the parts that I gained so much insight from the story, which is just about these appearances and, you know,
Mhm.
the suggestion that there are different types of appearances, and we are the ones in our human mind that judges it, analyzes it, says good, bad, positive, negative, whatever it might be, right, wrong, you know, all those things, and oftentimes misses what that experience is really about. I think that for so much of the human existence, we're individuals and therefore we're having individual experiences, and we sort of get stuck limiting
Right.
ourselves on what that thing it is that is happening or that experience in that moment, and we fail to actually perceive a broader perspective, and
Mhm.
one that is more in a continuum of a series of experiences that are occurring and unfolding, and that it's not just me and me alone in this experience, but that somehow there are other circles that we're connected to, that it also affects, ripples out, implicates in different ways that we really can't even fathom as to how expansive that.
Exactly. Uh-huh. See, Steve Jobs, you know, when he dropped out of college, he was just still hanging out in the campus. And he was attending other classes, just randomly interested, and he was doing this calligraphy class with no plan. He was just saying, oh, stylized writing. And later on, he said in his speech where he talked about the connecting the dots in the, you know, commencement speech in Stanford in 2001, I think, when he said that that calligraphy class, when he was so young, like 20 years old, he then applied to creating fonts. He said, why should computer only have one certain way of writing? I want to see different kinds of things. And that gave the world, and then Microsoft also imbibed it. And without it, what would life be like? It's
Right.
like a dessert, only having one kind of dessert in this world.
Right.
Now we have so many. It's
Right.
just like that.
That's amazing. I didn't even know about that story about calligraphy and how that all was connected together.
The
But it
calligraphy
is amazing.
really opened up that font idea in his head. And also, I know of a family who missed the flight with a family of 5. They missed the flight because the early morning taxi didn't arrive, because the alarm didn't go off for the taxi driver in time. So it was a domino effect where they missed the flight. And it was hard to get the whole family into another flight. It's a large enough family. But they finally did, and then the announcement came in. The pilot announced that the previous flight, the morning flight, was hijacked, not headed to Germany, but went to Norway instead. So you see, then they were like, oh, thank God we missed that flight. But until that point, they were very upset, and they were, they were upset with the taxi driver when he finally arrived late. So being curious, or, well, we'll see what happens, kind of gives us that more peaceful moments, And I think we all know those stories of on 9/11 stories where some people were delayed to work. They had an important presentation to make. Their office was one of the towers. But because of maybe a blister that absolutely needed a Band-Aid, she went into Walgreens, and the line at the cash register was so long, and the lady was having problems. Maybe she was new, and she was fumbling with all the things. With each customer, it was taking so much time that she was getting irritated inside that, I'm going to miss my presentation. I'm going to be late and look like a fool. But that delay, it was like a 10-minute delay that saved her life, because by then the second tower was hit, and that whole area was cordoned off, that you can't go any further. And she was so thankful that I'm glad I wasn't on time that day.
Yeah. It is. It's amazing, these kinds of stories. And I think, in that moment, you experience what might appear to be the horror or whatever, the
irritant,
the irritant, or the whatever it is, that however you're experiencing whatever event it is. And then we don't really know at that moment, and maybe later on we find out, oh yes, it was indeed really divine providence, or whatever you want to refer to it as, that I didn't, I wasn't in that situation, or that it was better that I wasn't around it, or whatever happens. But we don't often have that, and maybe this can help today, the story can help with that knowing, where we can trust that, okay, this is happening right now. Perhaps there's something else that's better. Now, I'm one of those people that have been accused as, just having the positive outlook on life, but it's more than just having like a positive outlook, or like that, everything is bright and cheery. There's a wisdom to that. That's not just about being naive, and naive has another side to it that also has a wisdom to it also, because it leaves you open in this beautiful way that you described, Malaka, of this curiosity of what else is in store for me. And there are many people that practice, whether it's their type of spirituality or religion or belief or whatever it is, that practice this idea that we're always being gifted in some way, that if we trust into the fact that the universe or God or whatever is always on our side, is always giving us a gift, that there's always something grand waiting for us in this way, that we're going to glean something, that we don't lose in this game of life, that there is no loss. There is that way that people believe too. And
Yes.
can't speak for anyone else because everybody is on their own individual journeys. We can only
Exactly.
offer this in this moment as being other possibilities of how to perceive.
Right,
How
right.
many ways there
Mhm.
are. And
Exactly.
certainly, like you said, these
Mhm.
peaceful moments, if we can actually adapt ways to receive more of those peaceful moments, I don't think anybody would be against that, right? I think
Right. And as you
everybody,
said,
yeah,
uh-huh, that every journey, every individual has their own journey. Like, when I was young, just 3 years old, I loved matches. I loved watching the grown-ups, that how could they do it and I would never get to do it. I would ask for it and not be given that. Then one day I found it well within my reach. Of course, when no one was in the room. So what was I doing? I wanted to see a lot of flame because I didn't know that it's hot. So I sat on near my pillow and I kept lighting the matches and I kept putting it on the pillow, hoping that it will burn up. And as luck would have it, they were not, the pillow wasn't catching on fire and the matches were going out. So each time it would be too close to my finger and very hot, I would release it and nothing was happening. And by the time I think I was doing the sixth or seventh one, my mom just happened to walk in. She gave one scream, took the matchbox out of my hand, and I bawled and I cried. I threw a tantrum, thinking, this is so rude. This is so horrible. Why did she do this to me? Why do they get to play with it and they never give it to me? So I'm so thankful now that my mom had walked into the room, screamed, and took that off. That maybe an adult left it, it's always kept at a high shelf so that we kids wouldn't get it. But that's the thing life often does. And when we have the bigger perspective of life, like looking back is getting that big perspective, we often see that, oh, that incident that happened actually worked out to my benefit. Apparently, at that moment in time, it didn't look like a good thing. It was as if, someone snatching an opportunity out of my hands, but it saved
yeah. And that thank you for that story. I didn't know you were a pyro. No, I don't. Love the flames and the fire. But how perfect, for you to be able to look back at that and see how that unfolded. And I think when you were speaking that story, it was real clear to me, at this time of the year, many people watch a movie, a holiday classic called It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed. And it's
Ah,
amazing
I
because,
have to watch.
of course, it's been made in color, like the older movies have been, transitioned into a color. This was a black and white when I first saw it, but this
Oh.
is for me an annual tradition, and it's very much like you're describing. It's this one man's journey, and his growing resentment in life about all these things that he felt were his mishaps, things that happened, didn't turn out the way he wanted. And it's something, the reason I feel it's a classic is because it reaches into our soul. We can all look back on things in life and go, yeah, that didn't work out that way, that was a disappointment, all those things. And for him, it's like this building, fire inside him
Mhm.
that leads him into a moment where he has additional things that happen that feel like such burdensome weights that he actually thinks about taking his life. But it's all told in the view and the perspective of these celestial beings, perhaps angels, that are looking down upon him. And they've been summoned because all these people, like little points of light is how they show it all over the world, are sending out prayers for this man, because George is his name, sending out prayers for George because George has had a tough time. They've all recognized it. They've all seen something brewing in him, and then all of a sudden they can't find him. And his wife knows, who shows this unconditional love for him, that sense, who knows all these things about him, but she loves him and hopes for him and prays for him that he can come through and see how valuable he
Mhm.
is. but they don't know that he's going to take his life. But they're sending prayers, and it so happens that it all coincides at the same time. These celestial beings are watching him going to take his life, and then one has to come down to help, quote unquote, save him. But the story is written in such a beautiful way. And then the gift that he's given with this one angel that comes down for him, a guardian angel that comes down to reveal to him what life would have been like if he hadn't been there. And then he gets to see like every single little point of what he thought were all his mishaps and how they perfectly aligned, and then what comes of it. And I won't be the spoiler alert on this. All I can say is that for me, every year, it's so funny because
it's a good reminder.
I've probably been watching it for 20 years, and there's probably been a few years I've missed, but it's still pretty a staple for me. I get to see it at least once during the holiday season, and I still have the same kind of feeling that comes out of it. So powerful.
Yeah, I have so many of those things myself, and I'm sure all the listeners will have something. Oh yeah, apparently whatever happened was for me to be prepared, or it was at that moment protecting me from another thing much worse that I didn't even.
For others too. That's the big part.
Preparing me to rise as a phoenix to help others who are going through something similar.
And that's what I feel is the powerful message part of that story. And perhaps today someone is feeling that same kind of feeling off of what we're sharing today, because again, in this human experience, it just seems like, I don't know if it's that we're just so hard-headed in some way or something, but we need so many reminders. And then just the fact that we get so many reminders over and over and over again, it's like, could that not be the gift of just how much perhaps that we are loved, that we
in
just
fact,
have this
Esperanza, we have gotten so much of sensual stimulation and, things to enjoy that it has blunted that part of us to be more accepting. Like I loved once when you said it's not about tolerating something, it's about being able to accept what happens. That's the real resilience. Not tolerating has a hidden aspect of somehow reacting negatively, but accepting is so much more wholesome and higher. In olden times, and I've seen it in my grandparents, and I've heard stories of back in the times of Native American wisdom, of the, or shaman wisdom, that accepting life, because they had to go to get anything for sustenance, they had to go a good bit to get that. So there was always a gratefulness for having gotten it. And when it is lost, they think that, okay, maybe it was not mine or something like that. Even death of children, nowadays we will sue the hospital, or because the expectation of that not happening is there. And I'm not judging anybody, but I'm just saying that our reaction, it goes in that line. Who made a mistake? Let's find the person who needs to get the blame. But in olden times, I've seen there is a more of after trying your best, there is an acceptance. And I think because they had to work very hard, even for good health of a child or an old person, or anyone going or doing anything, food, finding food, everything they were thankful for. And they took it in their stride with a wise shrug. Overstimulation or the expectation of satiation, I think, has built so much overreactive society now.
I agree. And I also believe, just as you said about the acceptance, that, I think the misunderstanding about that, when people, especially nowadays, when people are into, maybe hearing like, oh, I can create my life, I can manifest my life. That is true. You can. But this side that that you get certain things and that you change them because you walk away from them or you don't like them and you make these other changes or whatever it is. Nothing is wrong with any way anyone wants to select and choose, because everything is this experience we're talking about. It's all in the experiences, and you're learning from everything. There's nothing that we're not receiving. We're receiving all the time. But this idea of acceptance doesn't mean that we just are passive and that we can't make selection or choices. But it allows us to be present, conscious with that experience, to actually be able to like extract something that it brings us.
Mhm.
Right now, we are in a time and in a culture that if it's an unpleasant feeling, like you said, there's so many stimuluses around there, we can choose lots of things to like immediately jump or think that we're skipping over
Yes.
whatever that
Mhm.
situation is, and we can go to feel better, you know, whether it's that you whether it's
Yeah, the
that you
choice is very wide. Yeah.
choose an
Mhm.
activity, choose some external stimulus, whatever it is, and we can hurdle past this, and you know, we don't have to feel it for too long. Or like you said, we can get caught up in that experience of what people might perceive in the moment to be satisfying as a reactive place or stance that they take as a, you know, a fight mode. They're going to fight back to whatever the situation is. Even the word, like, we fight cancer, like I heard that once in a tape that I was listening to of a very beautiful indigenous woman
Yeah.
that speaks about, you know, this fighting back and this idea that we fight back cancer, we fight back the illness. And it's not about the healing aspect of it, but it's the
Mhm.
stance, the gesture that we take, that we're going to do this back to it. And as if though we draw some power out of that or whatever,
Mhm.
rather than the power that we just as easily could gain from going into that experience and perceiving it in this whole way that allows us to
Mhm.
actually come out of it with something that really is ours to have, not because we
Right.
just jumped into it
Mhm.
out of an emotional place.
That's a very good thing that you said. I totally resonate with that for healing also, that, you know, bring the healing rather than pushing the illness out. It is much more powerful. It's like if your cup is half full, we can't really, you know, push out the emptiness.
Yeah,
Apparently it is being pushed out, but fill in fill in more, and that automatically comes
rises.
to the brim. So that is pushing out, but we're not trying to suck out the emptiness, we are filling in more. So that's the thing. And you know, when you have an inner calling in life, even if it's like outrageously unrealistic, like, you know, above the clouds, or way beyond the horizon, but if you have a calling that kind of comes to you even when you're sleeping, every waking moment it is in the back burner simmering, clueless about how it's going to unfold, um, opportunities will come. And that's where I like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow
Mm-hmm.
Rich. It's a name that sounds, you know, until I had read it, it felt like a book that, you know, sit in your couch and get rich quick. And of course it's a bestseller because everyone's trying to figure out that easy way out. And
Yeah.
then when I heard that it took him 25 years to write it, and ever since then it's been a bestseller for the last 27 years or so, that made me think that he took 25 years to write it. Not so much the best being the bestseller for, you know, for, I felt, oh, of course it sells more, but he took 25 years to write it. There gotta be some truth in it. I got curious. And what I read is, I cannot describe that book enough and do honor to it, but I will just say that richness is not in terms of dollars. He meant it many times that it can be whatever you hold is your calling, your true
Yes.
thing that you consider as richness, and how to get it. And there he said that opportunity often comes in the garb of misfortune, slipping in through the back door. And if you are careful enough to look, you know, intently, you recognize it
Yeah.
as opportunity. And opportunity means, you know, tidings, you know, a blessing, a
Yeah.
way for you to use it and build. But many people say, oh, I couldn't reach my dream because of this, this, and this. But hey, maybe those were opportunities that would sharpen your razor to cut through and grow, you know.
Yeah. It's
So
beautiful. And I know that book in particular has moved so many people. Obviously, it's a bestseller. It has been for many, many
yeah, I
decades.
keep going back to it
But yeah,
again.
and I know that it's been transformational for a lot of individuals. So, and again, you know, who I'm sure, even though it took them all that time, you know, maybe it was a wish. I hope reaches people. But even, you know, I always wonder that, like how all of a sudden somebody writes a bestseller, you know, a best top song or whatever it is, you know, like most of the time these individuals have no clue that that's about to happen. You know,
Yeah,
and
and you
so
will see that it is his offering of
yeah,
life almost.
yeah,
And he has gone through that. Negative things have happened big
yes,
time to him.
yes.
And he went through it and he wanted
Yeah.
to share that with the world. So
And
it's,
just because something wonderful happens, what we would deem as being wonderful, like let's say all of a sudden you land with $1 million in your pocket tomorrow morning and all your bills go away and all the things that you felt were a hardship go away or seem to go away, that doesn't mean that at that moment that's it for the rest of your life, you know? It's like at that moment you have that experience. And that's what I think is really beautiful about this story. You can see how it shifted. First, it was something that was really great. And then it was something that like, you know, didn't get the same response from everyone in the village, but you could kind of see the story unfolding as the parents had the different thoughts. And then it was all of a sudden like, okay, well, now you deserved it. It was a good thing that it happened to you that way. And it's a mishap, right? And so now there's pain involved and other kinds of things and embarrassment and all these things. And then then it's also a good thing again. And then there's like the grieving because the other ones had to go and, you know, he got to stay behind even though he was injured and all these things. But it's interesting because this is a beautiful example in a small encapsulated little story of how this journey is as human beings, even the parents being the background voices of what we do in our own head as we analyze and we, you know, label it and judge it. And, you know, so on this path of, I think, more integrated well-being, we can start to select these different experiences as opportunities. And that's perhaps the intention today that we come with to also close this year, to know that the new year ahead lies with so many great possibilities that are opening to us. And that perhaps if we do those little tweaks and shifts in our own mind, if we so choose, that we can enable ourselves to begin to expand that kind of consciousness that actually goes, what does this bring to me today? That little bit of curiosity, and allow that not to be the reactive part of us, but this inward part that actually meets that moment with this kind of, another word for it would be with this sense of wonder. What is it bringing to me today? And if you can couple that on top of that with saying, what am I going to gain from this? What is, show me what has come to me. And we receive it as if though it is a gift. Those are some little intrinsic ways that we can begin to develop this way that we experience life with much more peace and grace and harmony, and even a sense of love that comes to us from the wonder in all of these facets of life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So beautifully you wrapped it up.
Thank you so much, Balaka, today for all your sharing. Please visit Balaka on her own website, The Green Writer. Tell us a little bit about that, Balaka, so that people know how they can reach out to you. And just to know that, you know, this is one of many gifts, like all of us. We have so many, but this is one of the other gifts Balaka has also.
Well, I now need to be very curious to see what thegreenwriter.com will bring to my life, because right now it's hibernating. So the Green Writer is primarily a copywriting service where I help environmentally oriented businesses or any business that's trying to grow greener, to make, less waste and still help their clientele. So I help with many different kinds of writing for the website, for their emails and things like that. But I also write on the side, on social media. I'm also writing a memoir right now, and sometimes even in my pseudonym, on spirituality. But if you want to connect with me, the best place is Facebook, found by my name, Bolaka Ghoshal, the Green Writer. Please, I welcome you to connect with me, and you can visit my site to get some free gifts there. And if you don't want to leave your email trail behind, that's fine too. It's not for my marketing lead generation. It's just to give you those little things that can help you on your journey forward. And on the whole, have a good life, full of curiosity and growth.
Yeah, a beautiful year ahead for us all. And Balaka, I know that you do so many beautiful videos too that are along the lines of helping us to live a greener life, and just so much environmental awareness. But I would also like to say consciousness about how we are living, in relation,
Interconnectedness.
interconnectedness and in relationship with the earth. And you have so many helpful and useful tips. You are literally the guru of recycling and repurposing, and so many great insights on gardening and how we work with the natural types of plants that are growing in our area.
Yeah, the native,
so all of those
garden.
things. Yeah, I just really hope that people connect with you in that way too, because you have so many great gifts to offer in that way. Apart from the fact that you sit on our board at Pure Esperanza, and we are so thankful for that, because your ideas are so wonderful to energize us and inspire us and keep us moving forward and encourage us. And we're just thankful that we're wrapping up this year with a board who has helped in so many ways, with donors. If you're one of them out there that's listening, we thank you for supporting the work of Pure Esperanza and our mission. And
I love the products that you sell.
Yes, and to help us
over this very useful things that I'm myself benefiting from. So
excellent. And we'll be increasing some of those products in our shop, again, always to align with the mission, the intention, and the purpose of serving you, so that you can have greater integration in all the well-being, which includes body, mind, and soul. And
which I have handy right here, uplifting me all the time.
So you can find those items in our shop, as well as healing jewelry and different ways to align your chakras, and anything from what you're working on, whether it's the physical or more the emotional realm or more the mental realm, mindsets, all of those, but all those connective pieces that bring that true holistic perspective of who you are as a human being and your greatest potential and your greatest possibilities to navigate and create your map for your journey, for the exploration, the discovery, the wonder, and always that fruition of your life unfolding in front of you, and you being connected with that journey and your highest purpose in that way. So we thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in our last episode next month, bringing in the new year. May you have a blessed, illuminated holiday season. Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Till next time. Thank you, Balaka.